You're right, all. So, my local MP back home in Derby messaged me about yesterday to do with an issue I've been having with me flat, with my leaseholders. Leasehold is an absolute nightmare for anyone who's looking at getting a property, just to warn you off. But that's not the point. While I was replying to her, I wanted to get a few points across. I've had an email from her before, and it's just been a load of waffle, like long-worded nonsense that just completely avoids the original question, and by the end you just get so sick of reading it, you just call it a day. So I sent her an email, and I'll read it out to you. Obviously, if you don't want to listen to my boring monotone voice, by all means pause the video and then read it yourself. So it begins with kind of just being polite to begin with. Thanks for sending the email, even though it wasn't what I was hoping for. You've got to be polite. There's no need to be rude right from the beginning, even if these people are very untrustworthy and essentially working against our interests, in my belief. Certainly from what I can see on the ground, without a doubt that's the case. I have to say, I think local MPs probably don't really know what's going on. I don't think they're way sucked into this big who sort of level agenda. But then again, they are certainly agents of it, so they deserve an element of hostility, should we say, and they certainly need to be held accountable for incompetence at the very least. So I'll begin now. So while I'm writing this email, I'm going to mention a couple of extra topics. I don't want to respond, as I personally have no faith in the current political establishment that is led by an unelected member of the World Economic Forum. Obviously, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, we didn't vote for either of them. We just appeared on the scene, and now they're leading the country. No one voted for them. But anyway, so the first point I make, economic migrants. By Derby train station there's 3 hotels, all of which are rammed with young illegal immigrants from the Middle East and Africa. Nobody was ever consulted about this, and it's infuriating to think my taxes are being spent on this. On November the 11th, many a politician will attend and show their respect for the men who fought and died for this country over the last century. Those men will be absolutely horrified with what this country looks like today, and those 3 hotels are a prime example of that. You can call them refugees all you want, but it's simply not true, as they traverse through all of Europe, which is not a war zone to get to the UK. So they are economic migrants, seeking the luxury you lot give them with the public's money. I did want to put harsher words in there about November 11th, with it being like a photo opportunity for politicians, and then they can go back to doing what they do. With regards to going on about men who fight and die for the country, well, looking at a lot of the wars we've been involved in the last 20 years at least, we can kind of debate whether that's actually true or not. Certainly the Iraq War, we all know now that was all about oil and toppling a dictator who was difficult for them to control, the same as Libya. And Afghan, that didn't achieve anything. I have heard a lot of theories about lithium in the caves, so that's another one. And even if you don't believe in that, right, the British Empire was always about resources. We went around the world looting places for resources. That's what it's about. It's not. It's just business. You know what I mean? It's a ruthless, like, mafia business in that sense. And I don't really care if you don't like that. That is how it is. If the UK forces were really defending the country, why are all these people landing on the shores of Dover week in, week out? You know what I mean? And they're doing nothing about it. Why is, like, Boris Johnson, for example, flying on a plane out of the UK to Ukraine to talk about their borders? It doesn't make sense, does it? No logical mind can rationalise that. Anyway, moving on to the next one. 15-minute cities. So all around Derby now, I see we have journey time monitoring cameras in place. How convenient that these have been put in place at the same time there is talk all across the country about the government and councils preparing to introduce 15-minute cities, which nobody was asked about in this pretend democracy we live in. There is also a reasonable theory circulating that these young men you are importing the housing will be deployed to enforce it as well. I do not consent to your 15-minute city plan. So I don't think the local MPs, but certainly the high up levels, definitely believe in karma. So, for example, they'll tell you what they're going to do. They don't hide it from you. They'll slip it in. They'll probably disguise it as entertainment or comedy. And it's down to you to do something about it. If you don't do anything, silence is compliance, basically. So by saying you don't consent, that's kind of a big deal to them, because karma will come back on them, at least in a small amount. But it needs more and more people to let them know we're onto them. Like the people in Colchester, that video that's going around recently, where the residents got together and went to the town hall and let them know we're onto you, we don't want this, and yeah. So the next one I want to cover was excess deaths. So since the pandemic, I've never seen so many ambulances on blue lights across the country as I am now. This, alongside excess deaths rising, that was just passed off with total indifference in Parliament a few weeks ago. And anyone who dares to question whether a certain medical procedure has anything to do with this rise in excess deaths is dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. So I think his name, I can't remember his name, was Andrew Bridgeford, the Leicestershire, Northwest Leicestershire MP that recently either resigned or got told to be dismissed. I'm not too sure. But he was a good example. Whether or not he's just kind of like false opposition, or whether he is genuine, I don't know. But certainly to at least be questioning it and bringing it up is a step in the right direction. But more or less just said, oh well, yeah, but excess deaths are happening everywhere. Like it doesn't matter. And let's not look into something that's happened in the last couple of years. Ironically, 3 years ago, we shut down the whole world for something that was apparently rising excess deaths. Unbelievable. But anyway, to finish off, as stated, I appreciate your email to update me on the flat issue, but I've mentioned a handful of issues there to get it out there. I don't seek a reply, so please don't spend your time putting one together. It's like many other people in this country, I have very little faith or trust in anything politicians have to say, and that's what I think. I probably will get a reply, because probably through professionalism they have to reply. I hope she doesn't bother sending me one, because I couldn't care less. We just talk shit, if I'm honest, and it'd just be a waste of their time. And I don't think I'd bother reading it, because it'd just be a load of waffle and nonsense, really. The fact of the matter is, these things are happening, and I don't for a second believe that these people will do anything about it, because they're signed up to an ideology that's sweeping across the Western world now, and with devastating consequences. But yeah, the point I'm going to get to finish on, I would advise every person across the country, if you are tired of the system, whether you are extremely left-wing or extremely right-wing, or centrist, whatever, if you've got gripes, let these people know. Certainly, I think it doesn't matter what religion you are, what skin colour you are. 15-minute cities, central bank digital currency, which is something I forgot to mention, I just remembered. These are going to affect everybody. These are going to affect every single one of us, regardless of what God you worship or what ethnicity you are. So I advise letting these people know that you don't agree with what they're doing. Like I said before about the karma thing. And yeah, that's it. Cheers.